I'm still like beaming from it. I I think I like reached out to him because I noticed that he'd like followed me on Instagram like a while ago. And I just wanted to be like, hello, thank you. I love your music. I grew up listening to you kind of thing. And ever since then he's just been like so genuinely sweet and nice.
Hey guys, James Wilson Taylor here for Rock Sound. Now the new album from Cavetown is on the way. I'm delighted to say to tell us all about it. We have Robin on the line right now. How are you, Robin?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for being here. You know, it's a really exciting moment. I should say, as we're recording this, we are a day away from release now. It's that really, really exciting time. Always like chatting to artists at this point. You know, how are you generally just feeling about it now that you know these songs are finally going to get out there to the public?
Yeah, it's really exciting. I feel like I mean, it's been a while since like I started writing the album, and I'm still I still remember like what it was like as um a younger like Bandcamp artist, just to like finish an album and then release it like immediately and get that instant uh like satisfaction or whatever of like putting it out there. So it definitely like this having to wait a little bit is it helps build up a bit of hype for me, and I guess a hype for the audience as well. So I'm just excited for people to hear the new stuff for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's an exciting time for sure. So the album is, of course, called Worm Food. Now, I want to kind of start there. You know, it's kind of a cliched question, but it genuinely fascinates me. I always end up asking people about album titles. I'm always really intrigued why people pick a phrase, even in, as the case is here, that you have a title track. So tell me a little bit about writing the title track and then why you decided that was the phrase you thought would sum up this entire collection of songs.
I think it took a while for me to uh like decide on an album title, and like I had pretty much all of the songs finished, and I was just kind of grappling for like either a completely new phrase or one of the tracks on the album, or just like a lyric from one of the tracks that would like sounded like a world to me, I guess. Um, and Wormfood was just I think it's one of my favorites from the album that I'm like most excited about, and I feel like the title was snappy enough to kind of um sound like I could create like a aesthetic around it, I guess. Um, I feel like yeah, a lot of times when I think of titles, it just kind of like feels right or sounds right. Like even like people ask me a lot what Cave Town means, and I honestly I wish I had a better description for it, but it just sounded cool when I came up with it. So that's kind of the same case here. But like stuff like that kind of I I kind of like how it creates its own meaning over time for me at least. Um, like right now it's not fully uh found a meaning for itself in my mind, but I think over time as like I sit with the album more and I play it live and stuff, it will kind of create its own life in the same way that like Cape Town as a name has created its own life. Um, kind of out of my control, it feels like, which is cool. It kind of feels like its own entity, which is nice.
Yeah, names sort of become themselves at the end of the day, don't they? It's why it's not a bad thing to just be like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. Because, like, I mean, the Beatles is like one of the worst band names ever, but look what they did. Do you know what I mean? Like these, they just get attached to what you then achieve with it and achieve with an era, I suppose. And
Mm-hmm.
again, you know, with this record, I mean, it must have been really, really exciting and kind of gratifying to see the reaction to these singles already. I want to get into a couple of those. Let's start with Frog. Just tell me a little bit about the writing process behind that one, and I guess where in terms of writing the album did that one come? Was that an early one? Was that a later idea?
That kind of was in the middle-ish. I wrote that one when I went to San Diego for like a couple of weeks to just as like a writing retreat, which was a real treat for me. It was cool because Amanda was like, "Hey, we have this whole like writing production budget from the label, but like you do everything yourself. So what are we gonna do with it? And so we we're like, let's get a cool Airbnb in San Diego and hang out for a bit. And it was really fun, and I had a really great time like um with my with my crew. Some of my crew came down there and hung out with me, and it was just like a really nice like little holiday. And yeah, I wrote a bunch of songs when I was out there, and Frog was one of them. Um, that I think I wrote and recorded in its entirety when I was out there. Um, and I think it was kind of a perfect place to come up with that because I was obviously like away from my girlfriend and I was missing her a lot. And so I she was on my mind, and so that's kind of I wrote the song about her. And we'd only been dating for a very short time, so it was still kind of like honeymoon stages. Um, and so it came very, very naturally to write a song about her, and um, yeah, it's ended up as another one of my favorites on the album. I think it's probably one of the only like happy songs on the album, which is kind of which is what it is. But yeah, I've written like a bunch of like love songs in the past too, but this one feels very different because I've never had a relationship quite like this one, and I feel like a lot of my love songs I've written before have kind of like insecure slash like I don't know like just sad undertones to them just because of like maybe it wasn't quite like what I needed at the time, or it wasn't working out in the way I wanted it to. But this one feels like entirely just like wholesome and like um yeah, just like a good little kind of timestamp of that honeymoon stage of my relationship. So yeah.
Yeah, how lovely to be able to document that moment in time in that way. What a lovely thing to be able to look back on, and especially when I'm sure when you're going to see the live reactions to that track in particular, I'm sure people will latch onto those moments in their own lives, which I guess is what you're always going to hope for with those, right?
Totally.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I want to pick your brain a little bit more about San Diego, actually, because, often when I talk to artists and they kind of write away from home and they take these trips, they do find that just the area they're in ends up influencing the record in, a variety of different ways. How was that experience for you? Did you find that new environment did end up impacting the writing anyway?
I don't know if like San Diego specifically, um, I mean, I guess just because it's a nice place and it was a really nice time of year. It was like I think I went in like January or February, and so it was like the perfect, like not too hot, not too cold. And we were like right by the sea. I think just the act in itself of like going somewhere, relaxing, and like with the intention of I'm here to write. I kind of it was easy to kind of like forget everything else that I might be worried about at home. It's kind of like I have my own studio at home, so I kind of I have that in a way. I can kind of leave my house and go to the studio, and it's like a separate workspace. And I'm able to kind of distance myself from anything that might distract me in the house, but it's like a whole nother level of that, I guess. Um, and so I really kind of I was worried that I might be feeling distracted by San Diego in itself or whatever, or um feel like out of my usual writing space. But I was able to get into like a real groove with it, and I brought along like a couple of like unfinished projects that I wanted to try and flesh out. And um yeah, I made some really good progress on the album, and I got to work with Vic there. That's where we hung out and we worked on kind thing what the song that would become a kind thing to do. um and so that was a crazy cool experience in itself. So yeah, I think it was a very productive trip, and I'm glad that I went there. I'm hoping to do that a lot more in the future too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, since you've mentioned it, let's mention Vic now because I mean, what an interesting collaboration that is. Obviously, anyone who's a Pierce the Veil fan knows that. I guess particularly actually on the last record, they really explored that more straightforward melodic style of what they do and everything, which I could see being more in line with the kind of style that you've perfected over the years. But primarily very, very heavy band. He's got a hell of a scream on him and all that stuff. It's a really interesting, on face value, really interesting pairing there. And I know what a Pierce the Veil fan you are. So, like, tell me a little bit about getting to work with Vic on that track.
Yeah, it's still kind of like I'm still like beaming from it. I I think I like reached out to him because I noticed that he'd like followed me on Instagram like a while ago. And I just wanted to be like, hello, thank you. I love your music. I grew up listening to you kind of thing. And ever since then he's just been like so genuinely sweet and nice, which is always great when you kind of like look up to someone, especially as like a teenager, and it's easy to kind of create this idea of them in your mind that they're like a wonderful person, and then and that they're you see their talents that they show you, but also that yeah, there's like a parasocial thing that you kind of come up with at that age. Um, and I feel like a lot of the time people realize that that's not real, and it can be really upsetting and disappointing. But it was just like super, I guess, a relief to be like, no, he is really nice. He's really sweet, and um, yeah, and he's still so talented. And yeah, it was just like a real honor to be able to like work with him on a song and for him to actually be like excited about that. Um, so yeah, he came around to the Airbnb that we were staying at, and we basically just like hung out all day, and he like took me out for dinner, and uh yeah, and it was a really lovely special day, and um yeah, I'm really pleasantly surprised that it even like worked out. But like, I was obviously like a little worried that like, oh, maybe we'll be sitting there and it'll be awkward and like we won't come up with any ideas together or whatever. But we got into a really good flow and we felt really inspired by the same melody that we are working on, um uh and yeah, it turned out really good. I'm really proud of that track. That's another one. I think I'm gonna say this about every one of the tracks is that it's one of my favorites, but it really is. I there's like a special place in my heart for every single one of the tracks in this album. So
Hey, not a bad place to be. That's exactly what you want as you're about to release a new record. You definitely want to feel that way about the tracks. I want to ask you a little bit about 1994 as well, because maybe this is just me projecting my own preferences and stuff on there, but I hear a lot of like Smashing Pumpkins and that early 90s kind of style coming through that. And I see it visually as well a little bit on there. That's what I took away from it, but I'd love to hear what your actual inspirations were and who were you kind of channeling when you write a song like that.
yeah, I mean that's cool. If you, I'm always like excited. Part of like what I'm excited about when releasing an album is just seeing what other people like project onto the songs or like hearing it. So that's cool. Um, but yeah, I'm not really sure. I think whenever I write an album that's kind of I can't like I can't like commit to one kind of specific sound or genre for the whole thing. There tends to be like little kind of groups within an album of songs that kind of are like it's like friend groups or whatever, like at school or something. Um, and so I think the first track that I wrote that was like kind of pop punky in that way was Fall in Love with a Girl. And um I think I felt like I needed to write some friends for that song, and um and that ended up being 1994, and then Heart Attack I think is also in that kind of um little click there. Um but yeah, I don't know. I can't pinpoint exactly like who I'm trying to channel through that. I guess it's just like a part of a part of what I would listen to growing up. Like I yeah, as a teenager, I was more into like um bands like Pierce the Veil as well as like bands like Blink-182 and stuff. And I think that those bands are kind of have a place in my brain that sometimes comes out through through my music, and I just chose those songs to come to life in, I guess. Yeah.
Some other things I want to mention. So, by the way, I will encourage people at this point, if you haven't already, go and check out the brilliant issue we've just put out of Rock Sound. Incredible, incredible stuff in there. And, of course, comes with a t-shirt that is helping to support a project that's very, very close to your heart, which is the This Is Home project. For people who don't know, tell me a little bit about what that's all about and setting it up, I guess.
Yeah, this is home project. It's kind of an extension of what I've been trying to do for a long time. Kind of ever since I started like growing my team and going on tour and stuff. It's always kind of been a no-brainer to do what I can to like work with charities that matter to me as well as matter to the world at any given time or matter to my audience as well. And one that is particularly important to I think me and my audience is just LGBTQ community. It's what there's a lot of LGBTQ plus people in my audience, and I'm a part of that community too. And so I kind of feel it obviously matters a lot to me, and I feel somewhat responsible, given like that I have a platform now to do as much as I can. And so, yeah, we've been working with charities for a long time, and this Swim project is just kind of an extension of that and a way to try and grow whatever I'm able to do. I guess it's like it's going to help us kind of connect with charities on a larger scale and work with them more, um, as well as just kind of fundraise for them and for individuals. I'm particularly excited to just kind of be able to make more focused differences on specific people. It's one thing to be able to like donate to a whole charity or work with a full charity that works with like a wider community of people, but it's another thing to be able to see a specific person and see that they may be struggling in some way, whether that's like um in finding like resources or needing surgeries or having trouble in like a bad home environment or something. And so I'm just like excited to be able to have like an entity which can help a person like that specifically. I can be like, hey, you need to raise money for your top surgery. I got you. Or like you need help in, I don't know, uh finding a new place to live. You're not in a very good place right now. I got you. And yeah, I've just always felt like all of these wonderful LGBTQ kid plus kids have gathered like under my wings of like Cavetown, and I I I feel like, yeah, I feel protective over them and I want to be able to help them as much as I can. And I know how it feels to be in that place that they're in. I definitely like at shows I can like see myself in these kids, and I know how much it means to be able to have someone helping them find these resources and stuff. So yeah, I'm rambling a bit, but I'm just, yeah, it's basically an extension of what I've already been trying to do, and hopefully will become like a bigger and bigger thing that I can make more and more people's lives a little easier, I guess.
It's something that it always seems to come up with artists like yourself who began, I guess, primarily on YouTube and around that kind of that big explosion of a lot of artists kind of starting out there, where you've been very, very creative and clever in finding ways of keeping that like community building feel that you get online but putting it out there into real life. That always kind of really interests me because that's when you're starting out, particularly, and you're building an online community or whatever we want to call it. It is direct messaging. It is speaking directly to an audience in that way. When you get out there in the real world, that can sometimes be harder to do, especially when you're playing bigger rooms, like we'll come on to in a minute. But that's really lovely, I guess. I guess it's about connection at the end of the day, isn't it? It's finding those ways to keep connecting directly with that audience.
Yeah, it's definitely like um yeah, it's been like a journey, and it's a continuing like journey to like adapt to like a growing audience. And yeah, it is harder to personally connect with individual people now. And we've got like stuff like Cave Club, which is like a smaller group of like fans who I can talk to more personally on Discord, and I like play Minecraft with them a lot, which is really nice. Um, but yeah, I always feel like I want to give everyone what they need from me. It's kind of I remember what it's like to be one of those kids who's like looking up to an artist, and you kind of you have your expectations, and you have your needs from what, yeah, like that you feel like you want them to connect with you in the way that you connect with them, and it gets harder and harder. And um yeah, it's I as Cape Town continues to grow, I never want my audience to feel that I'm caring less and less about them, I guess. And so yeah, the Cave Club and This Is Home project are kind of ways of kind of adapting to that size and making sure people still know that I do care, even if I can't like have a one-on-one conversation with you or whatever. Um, yeah.
Yeah, no,
Mm.
it definitely makes a lot of sense, and I think that connection is going to come more and more as we get into live shows. Which, again, at the time of recording, just around the corner. What, we're a couple of days away from the start of the tour now. I think at this point, how's prep been going? How are you kind of feeling about getting all these new songs out in front of the audience more than anything?
Well, I'm actually on tour now.
Oh, it's actually
Um,
started. It's actually started now. Whereabouts are you now then?
I'm in Nijmegen. Is that how I say it?
Sure.
In Netherlands, sure, in the Netherlands. We're kind of nearing the end of it actually. We've been going since the beginning of like October-ish. Um, but yeah, we kind of everyone's a little tired. I'm a little bit sick. It's kind of at that time where everyone's just like a little sleepy, but it's been a really, really fun tour, and we have been playing a few of the new songs already. Um I mean, Fall in Love with a Girl obviously came out already, and 1994 is out now, and now Frog is out. So we've been kind of like slowly adding those songs in, and it's been really cool to see people's reactions to that so far. Um, but yeah, we have a big show coming up in London, which is gonna be something.
It's a legendary room, that, man, and I say this because I used to work on the bar there back in the day. Like,
Really?
it's a legendary room, the old Hammersmith Apollo. That's got to be an exciting one to tick that off the list.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I kind of find it hard to like really internalize how big a number is until I'm like seeing it. So I'm like, everyone's saying like, wow, this is every time I play like my next biggest show, like whether that's my first time playing in 1,000 cap room or like 3,000 or whatever, people are like, wow, this is huge, dude. This is like iconic. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I believe you. And I, until I'm actually there and like sound checking or something, it's like, I find it hard to really visualize that. So it's kind of not really sunk in yet. Um, but that's going to be a big show for sure. And I have a surprise in the set too, which I'm not gonna uh I'm not gonna say too much about, but I'm excited for it. It's my first time having this specific um feature, I'd say, in a set, and I've been dreaming of it since I started touring. Um, so I guess I would say make sure that you ask for an encore. I'm sure people will, but like do it, otherwise I won't see this cool thing.
I think it goes without saying people are going to ask for an encore. Don't you worry about that one. I think you're going to be all right.
Cool.
Before I let you go, one more question I do want to ask you because not to make everybody on this call feel incredibly old, but I believe we are fast approaching 10 years since you kind of first started going on YouTube and putting music out there, since like we first kind of heard those early tastes of Cavetown. And whenever I, talk to somebody who's hitting an anniversary like this, if we want to call it that, I always end up asking the same question, which is not so much what's changed, because that's kind of obvious. What stayed the same? Is there anything about your working process or your writing process that remains the same as it did back then when you were putting out those first early songs on YouTube?
Yeah. Yeah, first of all, crazy that it's 10 years. I feel like I've barely been alive that long. But yeah, I I think looking back a lot is there were some aspects of like my writing that definitely started to drift away from the same, but I have managed to like pull it back to the same uh as like the same process that I had in the beginning because I kind of through losing that somewhat, I kind of realized how important that is to me to to really be happy with my music and like keep writing like a positive experience for me. Like for a little bit, especially over like writing Sleepyhead, I was writing that on tour and trying out new things and trying to like work. I tried like tried briefly to work with other producers and it just never felt right. Um, and I think through like losing that safety of working in my home on my own time or like being fully in control of all my production and stuff, I kind of realized how much that means to me and how important that is in creating something that I'm proud of. And so now, especially after like the big part of the pandemic, not saying it's over, but like when everything was first locking down, I kind of that was a good like chance to like reflect on that and what I wanted to be um doing differently or I guess doing the same as I had been doing. And since Man's Best Friend and now Worm Food, I'm really lucky that I have a team that have given me that space to kind of work at my own pace and I've kind of been able to set that boundary that I only want to be producing stuff from home um and like staying in control of pretty much every part of it. The only part that I've really like given away to I've kind of like outsourced is mastering because I just like don't understand like what that is about. I kind of tried to for a little bit, but it only really like involved like downloading a mastering plugin and I was like, this is too simple. How is this like a full job? And so I was like, okay, someone else can do that. Um, but that doesn't feel too like wrong to give up because I was like never I never like wanted to be a mastering engineer kind of thing. But yeah, producing and mixing has always been a huge part of my writing process and I've always like I always like have produced as I write. So I'll write like the first part of a song and track it straight away. Like I never really like finish a full song before like going into Logic and working on it, or working on the production. And so it always just kind of has made sense for me to keep doing it that way, and that way works. And I'm really grateful that I have a team that noticed that that works for me and that that makes me happy. And I haven't felt pressure to kind of move away from it. I've definitely like they've given me the opportunity to like try new things and see if that works for me too. But ultimately, the way I was doing it already worked out, and I feel like keeping those things the same is crucial, really, in creating something that I feel is fully everything that I want it to be. I guess so. I think aside from like getting better equipment or whatever, or creating like a studio outside of like my bedroom, I would say that pretty much everything about my writing process and my production process is the same, which is really cool. And I'm hoping to keep that the same as long as I can, really.
Yeah, hey, when it works, it works. That's really, really great to hear. I love that. That's really, really exciting. Congratulations on everything, for real. I mean, congrats on this new album. Best of luck with this UK run. Like I said before, go check out the magazine, people, if you haven't already. And yeah, I'm sure we'll catch up soon, all right? All the best to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Good to see you. All right, Robin, everybody.